Today, I want to talk about a game whose predecessor is actually one of the first RPG games I ever played in 2019, and is honestly one of the games that got me to fall in love with the genre, Outer Worlds 2. Now, in case you don't know, Outer Worlds 2 is the direct sequel to the Obsidian RPG Outer Worlds that came out in 2019. It's a first person shooter RPG set in space, and that's honestly right up my alley. And just a couple days ago, IGN just released some first look gameplay footage of Outer Worlds 2, and I figured that there's no better time to talk about it than right now. Now, Outer Worlds as a game was pretty flawed even back in 2019, but I loved it because of its easy access into the genre. It's a first person shooter for one, so it's something that I'm pretty familiar with as I kind of grew up playing Call of Duty and Battlefield, and so it kind of fit right in. And on top of that, it was a shorter experience, only lasting about 20 or so hours. And on top of all that, it was set in space, which is one of my favorite settings for a game to take place. So, all those things combine into a recipe of something that I just really loved back in 2019. And so, I'm excited to see the gameplay for Outer Worlds 2. And let me tell you right now, the game from the video that IGN released looks good. It looks like a noticeable improvement from Outer Worlds 1, and most importantly, in my opinion, it looks like a departure from some of the stuff that Avowed brought, which I'm glad to see because of the fact that I didn't love Avowed. Now, I liked it, I thought it was a good 7 out of 10 game, but it just didn't blow me away. And I have more expectations for Outer Worlds 2 than I do for Avowed. So it's important to me that there are some things that are different from Avowed. But let's dive into the Outer Worlds 2 video. Let's talk about visuals first, and then we'll go into gameplay. We'll finish it up with some story implications, and then finally, I'll talk about some wishlist items and some things that I would love to see in Outer Worlds 2 that maybe weren't in Outer Worlds 1, or even just some stuff that I'd like to see improved from Avowed. But again, if you like this type of content, make sure you hit that like button and consider subscribing to see more content like this. I'm thinking of posting more news videos and things like that so I can have a more consistent upload schedule, because right now I play a game and then review it, and that takes a lot of time. So I'm thinking of kind of releasing more casual videos like this as well in between, just to talk about and hear from you guys on what you guys want to see, what news interests y'all, and just to talk about games, which is something that I love to do. But let's dive into the Outer Worlds 2 video. So starting out the gate, you can really tell that they've improved the visuals, the lighting, and especially the sound design, going from Outer Worlds 1 and even Avowed to Outer Worlds 2. Now, I think Avowed is a good looking game, and I thought Outer Worlds was decent looking in 2019, but to me, it could be the video, it could be some special post-processing that IGN put on the video, but I do think Outer Worlds 2 looks really good. I love the moody setting of the quest. Now, I don't know if that's just something that's in this quest particular and doesn't really carry over to the rest of the game, but from this quest, the lighting was super dark. It seemed a little bit more mysterious as opposed to Outer Worlds 1, more satirical approach to everything. And so that's something that really sold me on some immersiveness of Outer Worlds 2's world. So overall, in terms of visuals, there's not a whole lot obviously I can say since it's a 10-minute video. However, I really did like what I saw. But one thing caught me off guard. I definitely saw screen tearing in the IGN video. That could be an indicator of rough performance. And Avowed was hard to run. I mean, Avowed's only a 2-month-old game. This game is also coming out in 2025, and Avowed was hard to run even for me. I do have a 4K monitor, so obviously that's something that is not easy to run on. However, I do have a RTX 4080, and I had to play with DLSS on ultra performance and frame gen on just to play above 60 FPS so I could record 4K 60 footage for you guys. So, you know, there was a little bit of performance issues with me with Avowed that I didn't talk about in the video, and I hope to not see those in Outer Worlds 2. But I'm not holding out hope simply because of the fact that Outer Worlds 2 is also being developed on Unreal Engine 5, which is what Avowed was developed on, and that engine is notoriously tough on systems. So I'm not holding out hope, but I would like to see it improved. The other reason I'd like to see it improved is because first-person shooters in general just demand higher frame rates. I know this is a story game, so you know you're not playing a twitchy shooter like Call of Duty or Battlefield, but at the end of the day, you know, I would like to see smoother frame rates to enjoy, you know, first-person shooters more. But you know, that's besides the point. The game still looks great. I'm still gonna enjoy it. I'm sure it'll run decent, but I would like to see them optimize the game more than they had for Avowed. Moving on though, talking about the gameplay, we didn't see a whole lot of actual gunfights or anything like that. We saw one quick gunfight and it looked good. I mean, it looked decent. There wasn't a whole lot we could gain from just that specific gunfight, but what I will say is that weapons do look like they pack more of a punch, and they're less floaty, which is something that RPG first-person shooters really suffer with. I talked about it in my Fallout 4 video. It's just something that, you know, it's tough to kind of get right in a big story game. But I will say that the gunfights and the gun mechanics themselves looked pretty solid, but we didn't see a whole lot of it in that video. What we mostly saw was a lot of walking around, some talking to NPCs, and a little bit of stealth. And that all still kind of looks like your typical Obsidian game. It didn't really look like it moved the needle too much in the gameplay department, which is something that I'm a little skeptical on, just because of the fact that I feel as though even though Avowed's gameplay was solid, I found it pretty monotonous towards the end, and I don't want it to feel like that in this game. The other reason I bring that up is because Outer Worlds 1 was a pretty short adventure, only lasting about 20 hours for me. There was minimal side content. There was, you know, some companion stuff here and there, but mostly it really was just kind of the main story, and that's how I played it. But Avowed took me around 40 hours to finish, which is, I would say, a decent length for an RPG game. But the fact that even in 40 hours, I started to get bored of the gameplay says a lot about the gameplay itself. It was fun while it lasted, but towards the end, it definitely got monotonous, and I don't want to see that for Outer Worlds 2. Now, I will say I am more of a first-person like shooter guy with guns, so I will probably be less bored than I was in Avowed, just in general, because I like that style of game more. But that doesn't guarantee that I will love it by the end. And so I'd like to see some gameplay shakeups, something that changes up the formula a little bit. Because at the end of the day, getting a quest, doing that thing, coming back, static NPCs, all that stuff really bring me out of the immersiveness, and there's stuff from the past. Really, the only two developers still doing shit like that, where you have static NPCs that are just quest givers, and you go do the quest and you come back. And really, the only two developers doing that right now are Bethesda and Obsidian, which is kind of ironic because they go hand in hand. But I would like to see that formula switched up a little bit. You're in a game that's set in a galaxy. I would love to see that translate to the exploration and the discovery. I mean, that's one thing that, in my opinion, Starfield got kind of right. I know each world was procedurally generated and blah, 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 and that all the POIs were the same, whatever. But I do think that landing on that planet, that new planet that you hadn't experienced before, was a cool thing to experience. And This could be even better than that because of the fact that each world is going to be handcrafted in this game as opposed to procedurally generated. So I would love to have that sense of discovery, of discovering new planets, kind of like Starfield wanted to do, but just more fleshed out, more things to do, more things to see, because that is something that I think lacked in Outer Worlds 1. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let's talk about story implications. There wasn't a whole lot of story, as you can probably tell from the video. I'm sure they don't want to spoil too much, but I'm curious to see how the story continues. Outer Worlds 2 is said to be a direct continuation from Outer Worlds 1, and Outer Worlds 1 I thought ended in a pretty good spot. So I'm curious to see how they kind of continue the story. Is it new characters? Is it, you know, kind of the same system? Is it the same ideas? Is it the same satire? Or is it a completely new vibe for a completely new game just set in the same universe? It's something that I'm excited to see in the upcoming developer direct from Xbox, and hopefully they talk about it there. Because I'm excited for the game. I want to see where the story leads. I think that's one thing that Obsidian does pretty right. I thought Avowed story was decent, if not good. And I thought Outer Worlds 1 story was actually pretty good. I liked it quite a bit. So I think Outer Worlds 2 story will be as good and hopefully better than those last two games. But now I kind of want to get into some wish list items for Outer Worlds 2 that I'd like to see switched up from either Avowed or Outer Worlds 1. For one, I would like to see a bigger galaxy, more worlds to explore, more things to do. I touched on it in an earlier point, but that's just something that I really want. I kind of got a taste of it in Starfield, and even though Bethesda didn't really accomplish it to their greatest of their ability or to the fullest potential of that system, I do think it's a system worth exploring though. Something about landing on a planet, exploring what it has to offer, what it has to do, random outposts that are there that you can, you know, go and get loot from. It's just something that breaks up the story and the questing a little bit. And that kind of brings me to the point of the fact that I want Obsidian to break away from their norm a little bit here. In Outer Worlds 1 and in Avowed, you kind of follow the simple formula of, okay, I get a quest, whether it's a side quest or a main quest, I go to the thing, maybe there's a little bit of enemies on the way or something like that, or maybe there's a little chest I can go out of the beaten path to find, but mostly I go to the quest area, I do the quest, and then I come right back, let the guy know that it's done, get my rewards, and move on to the next quest from wherever it is. I want to see Outer Worlds 2 break away from that a little bit. Now, I don't know exactly what the quest design was like for the video on IGN's YouTube. However, it did look like there's a little bit more sense of exploration and discovery involved in that quest. I want to see more of that. I want to do more outside of just questing and bounties. I want something else. I think Bethesda games do that really well with their like base building system. It gives you something to work towards. And even Assassin's Creed Shadows, which is a game I just reviewed, they also added a base building system that kind of gives you incentive to go out into those fortresses and get the loot so you can upgrade your base, which will help you in further quests and further whatever you decide to do down the line. So I'd like to see something like that in Outer Worlds 2. I know Obsidian tends to keep their games pretty tightly focused on what they want to do and how they want to accomplish it, but I think space is the best premise to kind of branch out and do more exploration, do more different things. I would love to see Obsidian's take on Starfield. I know Starfield is a much bigger game than probably what Outer Worlds 2 is going to be, but I would like to see them try. You know, you saw what Starfield failed at. The procedurally generated quests, the procedurally generated worlds, that stuff is what Starfield mainly failed at. I would love to see Obsidian get a crack at doing something like that without the procedural generation. If you give me 10 planets, to explore that are handcrafted, that have handcrafted points of interest on them, and handcrafted things to do, and handcrafted quests that make you go out and explore the world and find different things. I would love that. And that would probably go down as one of my favorite games of all time because I love that setting and that genre so much. And I think Obsidian should be up to the task of doing something like that because of the fact that they've learned from their previous games. Now, I think that's the main issue here, and that's something that I want to see solved. I just want Obsidian to go out and try new things. Avowed was fine. I think it was a little derivative, to be honest with you, and that's why I didn't give that game a glowing review, is because it felt a little derivative of the things that came before it. I want them to take Starfield and just make it better. I know that's a crazy thing to ask, but I think it's something that Obsidian can do. I'm excited for this game. Let me know if you guys are excited for this game. Xbox Developer Direct is right around the corner in June, and they're going to be talking about that game much more during that time period. I do think it's incredibly impressive that Obsidian is releasing two semi-big budget RPGs in 1 year, in an era where games like Grand Theft Auto 6 are taking 10 plus years to come out from their original release date. I think it's super cool and super important to see that you can pump out quality games in a shorter amount of time. And that's something that I hope to see with Outer Worlds 2. I know a lot of people were mixed on Outer Worlds 1. I personally loved it, and I want to see it get better. Just because of the fact that now I've played more RPGs, I understand, even though Outer Worlds 1 holds a special place in my heart, I understand that it's not the best or most complete RPG. I've played much better ones from then, but you know, that's why I have higher expectations for Outer Worlds 2, and I'm excited to see what they can do with it. Either way, that's been it, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, if you like this type of content, make sure to hit that like button. Consider subscribing to see more content like this. If you want to support me further, consider becoming a channel member either here on YouTube or becoming a patron over on Patreon. But yeah, guys, thank you guys so much. It's CGG. I'm out.